Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. Time for DC Spotlight for February 25th, 2026. Usually we start off these episodes going over recent news and things announced, whatever. There was so much fantastic news coming out of Comics Pro last week. And I wanted to do an episode about specifically just talking about that news, not just for DC, but also Marvel and some other publishers as well. But I had to take a trip this last weekend to support like a family related thing. So I didn't get a chance to do it. So I'm still going to do it. So I say that just to let everybody know, yeah, we're aware of Comics Pro. We're aware of especially, considering this podcast, the very exciting news about Absolute, the Absolute titles that are coming. There's an Absolute event, crossover coming later this year. So some next level news, including more creative teams announced and a couple of new next level titles that were announced. So yeah, a lot of great stuff, but we're not going to touch on it here. There will be a separate episode on the Comic Source YouTube channel coming up later this week. On that note, I've talked recently about doing a live show at least once a week. I don't know how many of you guys will be able to tune in. It's so hard to do a live show, right? It's like, when do you do it? People are busy on Friday night, Saturday. You're never going to be able to have one where, it's a great time for everybody, including myself. So that's kind of why I've been struggling with like what date to pick and why I haven't started yet. But I'm just going to pick it. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off, pick a date. We're just going to go with it. And if people show up, they show up. I imagine it'll build over time. But Rocky and Steve and I have so many fantastic conversations via text just throughout the day, talking about different comic book news and, things like, hey, why is DC beating Marvel in sales? And what do we think of, Absolute whatever. And there's a lot of great conversations that happen there. So I just thought it would be nice to kind of share that stuff with you. And I don't know if Rocky and Steve are how often they're going to be able to join the live show. Either they're both very busy as well. But we're going to kick it off. We're going to make it work, and I'm going to try to keep to a somewhat weekly schedule for it. And we'll just see how it goes. So look for that to
it's
start
a good idea.
off. Yeah, relatively soon. And we'll be, just like we used to try to do the DC the non-DC spotlight, the indie spotlight every week. I'm going to use that live show to take the opportunity to talk about other Marvel books that have come out. So it's not going to be like this one that comes out the day that the books drop. I'm thinking about Fridays or Saturdays to be the day that I do it. And I'll talk about books that have come out that previous Wednesday that are not DC books. If you want the DC stuff, you know where to come. You come to Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! Like, comment, subscribe once you're here, and you get all the fantastic reviews for all the mainstream DC books. We don't necessarily do every single book, but almost 90% of the books. And this week that includes 12 titles. There's a bunch of reprints and facsimiles this week as well as collected editions, and we'll go through all of that just like we usually do. But in terms of like the 12, main titles that encompass the DC main universe and the Absolute, I thought it was, it's interesting. There were a lot of books that I don't want to say they disappointed me because I did enjoy them, but based on the kind of the track record of the storylines, or just the quality of these specific volumes of these books, I sort of expected them to be better. And there were a couple of stories that sort of ended, I won't say on a whimper, but just it didn't end on the high note that I necessarily would have thought on, throughout the story. So it's one of those things. I've really enjoyed the journey, and then maybe the destination didn't quite live up to my expectations. Maybe that's on me for having, some higher expectations. But then there were a couple of books that I really, really enjoyed this week. So it's kind of hard to gauge the week overall. So I guess, considering the couple books I really enjoyed that were really high notes, and then the couple of books where I kind of expected them to be high notes and they were just sort of average to maybe slightly above average, it ends up being probably a slightly above average week for me. I mean, as Rocky and I have talked about many times recently, pretty much ever since Absolute started, it's a great time to be a DC fan. We want to think back to like the days when we first started this. I mean, we kicked this off when Future State started. Yeah. If you recall, Rocky, back in 2021.
Yeah, that was a low point for DC quality-wise, in our opinion.
Yeah, exactly my point. We decided, hey, we're going to go all in on the Absolute and start doing this podcast collaboration, YouTube collaboration, and we're going to review every single Future State book. And we had high hopes. We had high expectations, hoping that stuff would be good. And yeah, it turns out that was a low point. So if you compare, just an average book from the Future State to the average, the average book that came out, this week. Yeah, I say maybe some of these books weren't quite as much as I expected, but in terms of quality, if you compare it to Future State, oh my God, it's no comparison. All this stuff is vastly more enjoyable than that. So, yeah, long-winded way to say, yeah, it was an okay to very okay week for me. So,
yeah. For myself, basically, it was. I'd say it's about the same. I mean, generally speaking, I had. There were some that were definitely disappointing and sort of like meh, but. I had one comic book almost made my top 5, which surprised the hell out of me, and a couple of others disappointed me a little bit. But again, still, not to, you mentioned we have a lot of interesting conversations via text. I'm still very happy to be a DC fan because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a DC fan during those lower points when everyone's crying how great Marvel's been doing or other things have been doing, and now the shoe's on the other foot. So it's comic books are cyclical. I'm sure Marvel's going to come back. Comic books. That's just the nature of comic books in the industry. It seems, historically anyway. We'll see. But like I said, it's a good time to be a good DC fan. And this week is a little bit hit and miss, but let's talk about it.
Yeah, we'll kick it off with Harley Quinn issue number 59. This is from writer Elliot Kalan. Carlos Olivares on art. Marissa Louise handles the colors. Lucas Catoni on letters. I've sort of talked ad nauseum about this title. I'm not a fan of Carlos Olivares' art. He does that ink splatter thing that I really don't care for. The tone, it's fine. Something's got to come in last. I'm definitely enjoying the Elliot Kalan run better than the previous couple runs. So I will say that. But at this point, he's been on the book long enough that it is starting to feel a little bit one note for me. So that's why I put this at the bottom. This came in at number 12 for me. But that being said, I would read it again. I did enjoy it. The main cover from Yannick Paquette is fantastic. It might be one of my favorite Yannick Paquette covers I've ever done. It's It's subtly sexy, I'll say, as opposed to being like super overt kind of thing. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, Rocky's got the cover up there. So yeah, this for me was one of those where it was just okay. There is a David Nakayama variant that's really kind of more overtly sexy as well, where Harley Quinn's dressed like a nurse. So I'm sure that's going to be a big seller. David's a fantastic artist. But anyway, number 12 for me, Harley Quinn. And I'm sure you have something to add.
Yeah, I do. This came in at number 6 for me. It just missed my top 5. I've said before, both of us have been sort of very straightforward and diplomatic in when we just say that maybe this series isn't just for us because it doesn't fit our particular iteration or preferences for how Harley Quinn ought to be portrayed. So it's no insult to Elliot Kalan, who's very talented in his own right as a writer. But I actually thought that there was I like Carlos Olivares' art here. It grew on me. I think Althea Klang, she's the sexiest than she's ever been in this issue, I thought. I really enjoyed this issue. And also, I want to just tell people straight up, I know everyone's talking about, to me, this is a legitimate speculation alert. This is the first date, the official date between Althea Klang and Harley Quinn. I predict this isn't artificial hype or anything. I mean, there's a lot of talk now with White Sky and dorks, artificially, is this market inflated? Is somebody manipulating the market or retailers getting together to conspire, et cetera, et cetera? All that talk. This is, I think, a legitimate key issue. And Harley Quinn sales right now aren't that as great as historically she's been in the past. I think this is, there's 2 covers here. Cover A, I think, is the one that's going to hit. There's also another cover that has Alethea and Harley Quinn on it as well in the variant covers. I think this is going to be I think in the future, Althea Klang might not be a character now that is necessarily resonating with audiences, but I think inevitably it's going to. There was on the date here, this was basically a first date that it was a disastrous date. I won't give the full review because it's not in my top 5, but I will say that just like Janet from HR is Poison Ivy's on again, off again, sort of like sexual romantic partner other than Harley Quinn. That's clearly what Althea Klang is, sort of, and that's how Harley sees Althea. And at one point, she even tells Althea that, much to Althea's arguably broken heart. And I think it works. And I think Elliot Kalan is sort of finding his own for these characters. This is a character that's grown on me. I think it has lots of potential. I think that if there was a mistake made by the writer here, is that the main story's dragged on way too long. There should have been shorter story arcs, 6-issue arcs, as opposed to this. This feels like a 12-issue story that just never wanted to end. It was too long getting to this point, but it is what it is. I enjoyed it for what it is, and I do want to emphasize, making my top 6, this came a long way, because this was often near the bottom of my pick, to be honest. Speculator alert, I'm picking up all the variant covers on this. And that this is me playing speculator, but also I think that this particular date, this was a fun issue. You don't really need to read any of the previous issues of Harley Quinn to really enjoy this issue, because all the zaniness that happens, you don't really need to know the background at the time. This is basically your typical date where, you know, other characters come into play to ruin it, and everything you need to know is in the issue itself. So I just wanted to give Elliot Kalan that compliment, and the art as well. Even though it's not your cup of tea, I think that it's suited it's been more or less consistent in this last story arc, and it does have its own sort of stylistic sexiness to it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the other cover that's there behind me, if you're watching on YouTube, Elizabeth Torque is the cover artist there. Very beautiful as well. But you're right. Like, if I think it just in terms of zaniness, right? Like, if I'm objective, I look at this, it's not so dissimilar from what's arguably the most popular Harley Quinn run ever, which is from Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Conner. It sort of has that feel. The difference being that most of those issues had Chad Hardin art, which I love, and this doesn't. It has an art style that I don't care for. So I think that's really the difference. That being said, as much as I love Jimmy and Amanda, their Harley Quinn run wasn't for me either. It's just I don't enjoy a zany Harley Quinn as much as I enjoyed the art in those series. I think I dropped their series around issue like 13 or 14, something around there, because it just wasn't resonating for me. So anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Detective Comics number 1106, The Courage That Kills finale, written by Tom Taylor. Mikhail Yanin does the art as well as the color, and then letters are by Wes Abbott. I'll start by saying this is one of the books I was talking about where, man, did I love the journey that we went on. I love this lion character, as a villain. I loved the art from Mikhail Yanin. I thought it was just really, really great. That being said, I sort of expected the finale to land a little harder. The cliffhanger in the last issue was great. You know, we find out that the lion actually infected Gotham days ago. It was not a situation where, you know, this final night, if you will, that Batman's trying to stop the bad stuff from happening. Like it's already happened. With Damian going to the water plant to try to prevent it and what have you. And sort of the plan that was hinted at from Batman and the collection of scientists that he put together, including Jonathan Crane, but Mr. Terrific and Ray Palmer, all these guys that had come together to try to find a solution to this this disease, if you will, or this pathogen that would remove fear from people. And it's an interesting idea. So again, this is just a story that for me, the journey was a little bit more it was very satisfying. It was very enjoyable, but more so than the end, because this felt a little, I don't want to say anticlimactic, but it didn't land with the strength I think that the previous two arcs have ended with. So, not to be too spoilery, but basically, I mentioned Jonathan Crane being part of the team. He's got his fear toxin. The whole thing that the Lion is doing is he's purporting to be freeing the citizens of Gotham by removing their fear, but we have fear for a good reason. It keeps us from doing stupid, reckless things that would kill. It's a survival mechanism, in a lot of ways. Don't if you're scared of jumping off a 10-story building, well, that fear's legitimate. You will die, right? It keeps you from doing dumbass stuff like that. So if you don't have that fear instinct, you can do things that could be harmful to your own health, or to your detriment, or put yourself in harm's way. But basically, what Batman does is he introduces the fear toxin to the mobs of people that are out doing dumbass stuff in Gotham City, as a way to temporarily stop the Lion's plan, which is going to cause Gotham to basically rip itself apart. And then in terms of a final solution, it's really ex deus machina, because Batman realizes that the Lion in his previous iteration had really looked up to Bruce Wayne, and he wouldn't want Bruce Wayne to be suffering, so he would have sent Bruce Wayne the antidote, and that's exactly what he had done. So Batman just takes that antidote to Mr. Terrific, he mass produces it, and they put it in the water or whatever, just distribute it however they need to basically cure the citizens of Gotham. So a little bit anticlimactic, not the most action-packed solution. The action really comes from that night when the mobs are out and about and they release the fear toxin, which is only a temporary solution. So I don't know, just a little bit interesting and different in terms of structure for the resolution. But where I really did love it, and it brought it back to really feeling like a story arc that I enjoyed, was on the final page, where we see Bruce goes to visit the Lion in I guess it's Arkham, where he would be imprisoned, and they're talking, and they're sort of seeing themselves as the little boys that were hurt, right? Bruce being obviously everybody knows origin, his parents being killed, this Lion character Leo, his dad having to been taken away by Batman because he was a criminal and what have you. And that final line, "to hurt children of Gotham," very on the nose for Tom Taylor, right? Very, very much in the feels, but I almost feel like, that image, that's an image that I'll remember. It's almost like the story could have started with that image in a way, because it kind of bookended the story. But the other thing that I'll give Tom Taylor credit for is the fact that, maybe this wasn't the most satisfying in terms of a conclusion to introduce this character, but the Lion is a very interesting character going forward for other creators to use. So, obviously I expect to see him show up again. It will be interesting to see if he even remains imprisoned. In his persona as Leo Kingsford, we saw when Bruce went and visited him in that other country, he owned a casino. He had like a lot of financial resources. So you would think that he's got pretty good lawyers and he's not going to be long for Arkham. And so he'll be out there as a threat for Batman in the future. And, he's not so dissimilar from some other interesting characters that have a tie to Bruce's past, whether it be Tommy Elliot, Hush, or who's the other guy that was his brother?
Thomas Elliot.
There was another guy that pretended to be his brother, not his neighbor. From Batman Eternal.
I can't remember his name. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
I'll look it up while you give us your thoughts on Detective.
Yeah.
Well, even though, one last thing, right? Even though it didn't land with as much impact for the finale as I'd hoped, it did still make my top 5. Actually, no, it did not make my top. I thought it made my top 5. It did not. I talked a lot about it because I thought it was in my top 5, but it didn't make my top 5.
Well, what it made my top 5, I actually didn't feel this was a Duke Machina ending in the strict sense. I actually love this ending. It's what made me put it in the top 5 because, to be quite honest, the predictable ending would have been Mr. Terrific finding the cure and spreading the cure throughout Gotham. What I loved about this was that it was Bruce Wayne. It was Bruce Wayne who actually saved the day. It was it was something heroic that Bruce Wayne did as a philanthropist that ultimately saved the day. It was Bruce Wayne's kindness when he was younger, as a young adult, who helped a young person who would grow up to become the Lion. It was that friendship that ultimately led to all of Gotham being saved, because the Lion sent, of course, Bruce Wayne the antidote. So I thought that tied in the themes of the story so well, that there were two children of Gotham that in their own way became friends in their personal identities, adversaries when they're adults, but in many ways it's the loss of innocence, because isn't it sort of sad that as Bruce Wayne becomes an adult, grew into adulthood and became Batman, as the Lioness grew into an adult and became the Lion, that they end up being enemies. And yet, as children, as highlighted by that beautiful ending, that images of them as young kids, it's sort of that loss of innocence as you get older. So thematically, I really thought that Tom Taylor sort of like really drove that point home, and I thought it was beautiful. Quite frankly, I thought it was a powerful message, and so I admit that yes, there's a convenience to the ending, but I prefer that ending to just Mr. Terrific coming up with the cure. I also really like the fact that the whole idea, the whole plot was just kind of cool. Well, the Lioness removes fear, and which can be dangerous, but then there's the Scarecrow who induces fear, which is equally as dangerous. But yet we kind of need both. We kind of need some elements of both, but often we need some level of fear. And so that dichotomy was just it was very well played out and explained throughout the story. And I thought it worked really well. The art was great. I thought it was very well done. And yeah, I won't need to elaborate more. You already did. I thought it was really done. I also want to give a shout out to cover A. What a beautiful cover, cover A. It's just awesome. I love covers like that. It doesn't need the word bubble where he says, "I'm not afraid." It could have literally been just that alone without the word bubble. But I say that most of the time. I like word bubbles on covers. I'm a little bit different that way. But in any event, this was quite good. And Tom Taylor, this continues to be Tom Taylor's best work at DC. His run on Detective Comics, in my not always humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's my favorite work at DC's done as well. Lincoln March. Lincoln March was the villain that was pretending to be Batman's brother, or Bruce Wayne's brother, I should say, just for everybody else out there that was screaming at their screen or whatever, or yelling out while they're on the subway. Lincoln March, you dumbasses. All right, up next, Justice League Unlimited number 16 from writer Mark Waid. Dan Mora on art, Tamara Bonvillain on colors, Ariana Mayer on letters. This is another one that I really enjoyed, but it didn't make my top. It actually came in at number 11 for me. Again, this was one where I actively enjoyed this. The only book that I would say that really was average to below average for me was Harley Quinn. Everything else I enjoyed, and that includes this title. But it did feel a little bit, as far as a DCKO tie-in, not necessarily necessary, as it were. The other thing that again, a little bit of a nitpick, but I'll just mention it. We saw last issue that the villains that were remaining on Earth, that were trying to harvest souls, and then Airwave, leads a team of not so well known, Justice Leaguers. Again, Justice League Unlimited includes every superpowered person on Earth as a member of the Justice League. And there was like this jukebox looking thing that Neron's face was superimposed at one point when Wallace West, Kid Flash, was going to go and try to destroy it, and then Neron's face popped up, whatever. But the whole idea was that was the receptacle that all the souls were going in or whatever. And what we see in this issue, when Owl Woman, who was the betrayer, hears and sees the heroism of these Justice Leaguers, she then changes her mind and is no longer an agent of Neron, because Neron has sent her up there to assist the villains, to make sure that he gets his souls. And she has a change of heart, regrets her betraying, because we do get an explanation of why she betrayed everybody, and she's just in it purely for her own survival. But she remembers, again, remember, this is an echo of, a future heroine. So maybe that helped lead to, her moment of weakness or whatever. But when she decides to betray Neron, she destroys that receptacle. Now, we were told previously by Neron when, Kid Flash was going to destroy it, he's like, oh, if you do, it's going to cause this great big explosion, and all the people whose souls are trapped in there are going to die, and all you heroes will die as well. But then she destroys it right here on this page that Rocky has up on the screen. she destroys it, and nobody dies. Everybody's fine. So it was kind of like, wait, when she did that, I was like, well, why didn't the heroes just do that? And that I went back and reread the previous issue because I wouldn't have remembered why. Because it was like, well, if she could do that, and the villains are like, oh, you've stopped us, you've thwarted us, like then why didn't the heroes, like, you know what I mean? Like, it was so easy to stop them, just destroy this thing. And then I went back and read the reason why. Oh, they couldn't. But then so maybe it's because she has powers that are, augmented by neuron energy. Like, I don't know. It's a little bit of a hole in the story, but again, it's a small hole. It's very much a heroic story. I'm nitpicking. The Dan Mora art is fantastic. So yeah, but again, for the fact that I even had that nitpick or whatever, that did contribute to it being kind of lower rated for me. But anyway, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it didn't make my top 5, but I will say they shouldn't have called this the Terrific 10. This should be, to me, this was the Quantum Ghost League. That's what they should have called them, the Quantum Ghost, because it's a better name, and it just has a ring to it. The Quantum Ghost League. It's kind of cool. I liked it. Honestly, this does have a feel. They needed a filler story for the Justice League Unlimited, and it was kind of cool, and it actually made sense. Somebody had to deal with Neuron, and having this Quantum Ghost League that could actually sacrifice themselves, I thought was a good idea, because at least in some small sense, we actually experienced loss. Because let's be blunt here, despite the DCKO tournament, and despite all the catastrophic destruction that the destruction of the Earth and the coming of the apocalyptic nature of the being turned into apocalypse, no one died. The only heroes that actually sacrificed themselves were the Quantum Ghosts in all the crossovers of everything. And even in the tournament, even if you lose the tournament, you don't really die. But these Quantum Ghosts actually did. And so their sacrifice, ironically enough, was probably the most significant, even though it might arguably be seen as being in sort of a in the general scheme of things, perhaps an insignificant storyline. I kind of would like to see them again. I also thought it was curious that Dan Mora, like the A-list artist, is drawing this particular storyline on for this. I would have thought like they used him for the DC knife fight. And then he's what an artist. Like he's got so much speed. I mean, Jim Lee, take notes. I mean, Dan Mora, I don't know if he must do some serious drugs. Whatever drug Dan Mora has taken to draw all these issues so quickly, he's really got to call up Jim and say, hey, Jim, have this. You'll finish Hush 2 in a week. But in any event, it was. I did enjoy this run. It was pretty good. All things, considering that it was sort of just a fill-in story, but in many ways it was self-contained, and it had redemption, revenge, heroism, the whole 9 yards, betrayal, and so it was pretty good.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Dan Mora on the main DCKO title, but that's just me. I will say though that this issue has some really banger covers. We didn't mention it. Some of the other books that are out this week and some books that have come out this month, but there are these Valentine Day cards by Chris Uminga, where it's the DC heroes, and they look like the Valentine's cards that you would have given out when like you're in elementary school. And they're the heroes as little kids. And the one for this issue has Black Canary kissing Green Arrow on the cheek. And it's just super cute. But there's also, I wanted to call out a Star Sapphire variant by Kathy Kwan that's really gorgeous. And then Rocky's got the John Jang cover up. And then for you Dan Hip fans, I know he's got a big following. There's a Metamorpho where he's standing on his head like breakdancing, like doing that headstand spin thing that you do when you're breakdancing. So the Justice League this week has a lot of banger variant covers if you're so inclined. So
yeah.
Well, just in time for Valentine's Day, from writer Jeremy Adams, we have Green Lantern issue number 32, City of Love. Art is by Montos, colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr., letters by Dave Sharp. I don't know if Montos is the best artist to draw a romantic story, but he does a fantastic job, I think, of rendering Carol Ferris and Hal Jordan sort of in their civilian identities. if you will. They're on a date in Paris, and Hal is actually about to propose when their date is interrupted. Basically, I mean, he's literally about to pull the ring out of her pocket. Carol notices some lights across the city, and decides to investigate, and it basically ruins Hal's chance of proposing. And when Carol finds out later, she really, really doesn't take it well. What she realizes that this villain, who I don't even know, does the villain ever get named? Oh, I mean the authorities of the French authorities call her Cupid.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, she
she's
does have
she was in Black. She was in Black. She originated, I think, in the Black Canary Green Arrow run back in I forget what year that was. It's about, I think, 10 years ago. But she played a role there. She was a fairly deadly villain at the time. But
yeah, I mean, she's kind of a plot device here and played for comedic effect. But it was interesting when I looked up the issue on League of Comic Geeks to try to find out who she was. She's not even really listed. That's how minor of a role she has. But she is used for good comedic effect from Jeremy Adams. So this is a really enjoyable issue. It's in my top 5. I thought the art by Montos was fantastic because Jeremy does something here that is really amazing. He first of all, he hints at who one of my favorite relationships in comics is Carol Ferris and Hal Jordan. Again, part of it because I'm just such a fan of Hal more so than any other Green Lantern. And if you're, a fan of that era, you just, him and Carol together just makes sense despite the, the ups and downs or whatever. Mm-hmm. But so not only do we get that and potential for a future marriage there, which would really be interesting, especially with them wielding 2 different parts of the emotional spectrum, but when they apprehend Cupid and like there's an artifact in her bag that she stole, like this sort of ancient relic, and it has a little part of the star sapphire in it, and we find out because basically this little gem comes out of the little cross-like relic, and it bonds to Carol's star sapphire ring, and it speaks to her just like you would see any ring speak to a potential wielder. You have the ability to overcome great fear, or you have the ability to have amazing rage or instill fear, whatever it might be. But this time, as this part of the ring bonds itself, we find out it's part of the star sapphire itself. It says you are acquainted with one part of the 8, that piece being twisted into an emotion, into a lantern. It is the greatest force in the universe, split apart long ago. So basically, what Jeremy has come up with, this idea of splitting the aspect of love, which is the emotion that's affiliated with the star sapphire or the purple lanterns, as it were, and given each of them an avatar. So these different entities or people or beings or whatever you want to call them that are affiliated with love. So Eros, Philia, Storge, Ludus, Pragma, Felucia, Agape, and Mania, or Mania. Yeah. And it's basically saying you found this one because apparently Mania is the one, and I don't know, maybe I'm not familiar enough with Starfire. Is Mania the name, or Mania the name of their entity? Like I don't know that off the top of my head. So I probably should. But anyway, if that's the case, then that's what they know. Now, this piece she found is apparently affiliated with Agape, and the others she must find so she can wield the full star sapphire and shine the light of love into the universe once again. So she's got to go on this hunt. Now, I'm a sucker for these stories where something's been broken apart into all these, different pieces, and it's got to be, all collected or whatever.
You like treasure hunts? You like treasure hunts?
Yeah. Like, really? I think back to like the first G.I. Joe cartoon back in whatever it was, 1983, 84, to sell the toys when they had to go and get those 3 different elements, red gems and some special water, and I can't remember what the third thing was or whatever. But they can be really, really fun kind of stories, and Jeremy has given us that, and so apparently this has always been the case. I mean, Jeremy's retconning here a little bit, but he's doing it the way that I like, where it doesn't contradict anything that's come before. So this idea that the Star Sapphire has been split up. So in all the different iterations that we've seen the Zamorians and how powerful they've been as these Star Sapphires, and Jeff Johns really, retconned as well, because the Zamorians were around long before there was the emotional spectrum, and he retconned it so that they were actually, a part of it. Because before they were just an enemy of the Green Lanterns at various times. And then, if you recall, Rocky, I think it was in the Millennium event where the Zamorians came and they all paired up with different Guardians, which was that Joe Staton art. I just remember him drawing the statuesque Zamorians that were like 3 times taller than all the Guardians of the universe, and they were all paired up. And it was like, dude, why would these hot women go with these shriveled up old men? But anyway,
hey, man, that's just the way it is, man. If you're a Guardian, doesn't matter how short you are, you're rich. You got the ring.
I guess. Yeah, you got the brain, you got the power, you have all the knowledge. But anyway, this idea that as powerful as the Zamorians have been over time, they haven't been coming close to using their full potential, because the Star Sapphire that powers them, it's been 1/8 of the actual power. So we know Jeremy's over here making Aquaman the most powerful character in the DCU. Is Star Sapphire to be the second most powerful? Are you trying to do it again, Jeremy? So anyway, I really enjoyed this issue. I love the main cover with Hal holding out the engagement ring, but there's also a great variant by Stephen Byrne. It's up behind Rocky. If you guys want to check it out, basically Hal and Star Sapphire flying through space as the, I guess, chibi or like little baby manga versions of them. That looks fantastic. So, just love this issue. So Hal technically did not propose. They put a pin in it because after everything was said and done and they captured Cupid, Carol was like, I need to go on this mission. Hal needs to find out what's going on with the visions he's getting from the Book of Oa. So they've decided, hey, let's go take care of the things we need to take care of first, and then we'll come back together, and hopefully he gets to finish his proposal. So we'll see. Anyway, this was in your top 5 as well, Rocky. What'd you think of it?
Full compliments to Montos on the art. He made it sing for me. I mean, I love this story. I love romance in comics. We don't see a lot of romance in DC comics. We don't see a lot of romance in superhero comics in general. It's really nice to see it, actually, when we do see it. Probably because we don't see it as often as guys like me, anyway, like. I'm actually a romantic at heart, believe it or not. I have to admit, I've never considered myself an expert on all things Star Sapphire. I had no idea there was 8 aspects of love. I have no idea what philia, storge, ludus, pragma, philotia, agape, eros. I don't know how. I really don't understand what that means. Hidden aspects of love. I'm in. Hey, I'm not as big a fan of treasure hunt stories as because sometimes they're the most potentially dangerous to they're the most dangerous in terms of they can go sideways sometimes, and they can tend to drag on. But in Jeremy Adams, I trust, because the guy's he's firing on all cylinders. He still continues to impress the hell out of me, and this is just as great. The art. I love how pissed off she got when she found out that the proposal was ruined. I also thought this is really interesting that because Hal Jordan is kind of the last. Hal Jordan, if you really want to get into the weeds, and I'll just cut right to my point, he's considered in many ways even pansexual at times. Grant Morrison had him basically. Grant Morrison suggested in his writings of Hal Jordan that he's essentially got an alien female in every port, so to speak, and he strongly hinted that he had more than one relationship in that run. And so I could understand, Carol, if ever there was a guy to have a wandering eye, it would be Hal Jordan. Depending on how you want to interpret the guy's adventures, because he spent an awful lot of time in space, and I can't imagine he was always alone. But in any event, I like that. And hey, and if he does have a wandering eye, hey, all the more reason. Because if I recall correctly, Star Sapphire, didn't she have a thing for the Torchbearer a while back? I thought her and Kyle had a thing. for a while there. But in any event, I like this, more drama, and you can't. What better way to install drama than to have a little intimacy in the relationships? So I like it. Also, my favorite page is actually the page that show Hal Jordan with over a dozen roses. I thought that looked absolutely classy as hell. Best he's ever looked. He looks better in a tux than he does in a Green Lantern outfit, and with the Paris Tower behind him just looks fantastic. So good stuff.
Eiffel Tower.
Eiffel Tower. Thank you. I think I could remember it. God.
Yeah. Hope nobody's listening in France or really screaming at us.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I tried to look it up to see if I can't find the name of the. I kept saying Purple Lanterns. Obviously, it's the Violet Lantern Corps, but I can't find the name of their entity. I'm sure somebody out there knows. If you know, leave it in the comments. Is that who Mania is? Curious about that. So. All right, up next, Absolute Wonder Woman number 17 from writer Kelly Thompson, art by Hayden Sherman, colors by Jordi Belair, letters by Becca Carey. Definitely in my top 5. Absolutely loved it. The art by Hayden Sherman is fantastic. If you all were wondering, like I said from the beginning when Zatanna made her first appearance on that final page that Rocky somehow missed, why she was a villain, we find out how... Veronica Cale has been controlling her. So she has been infected with a parasite, and it's a Starro. It's a Starro that's inside her that's allowing Veronica Cale to control her. So basically, she uses the mission that she's been sent on as part of a Suicide Squad to confront Diana and take her magic to break free. She basically vomits out the parasite using Wonder Woman's magic that she is controlling, and then teleports away and escapes Veronica Cale to Veronica Cale's chagrin. The rest of the women don't need parasites. They're apparently all in. Diana does have some mercy on Dr. Poison, sort of takes her off the playing field, which leaves this Mer person, Ara, I think her name is, Cheetah, and we find out Cheetah's name is Priscilla, so I'm sure a reference to Priscilla Rich, who was the Golden Age Cheetah before Barbara Minerva, and she didn't actually have any powers other than being just a very jealous person, apparently. And Giganta, who is really leveled up here in Absolute Universe in terms of her ability. So it leads to an epic fight between Giganta and Diana, Wonder Woman, who's trying to prevent loss of civilian life and damage and what have you. But as Veronica Cale is watching all this unfold and realizes that she's lost control of Zatanna and is worried about not being able to defeat Wonder Woman, sends in another witch. She's like, send in the other witch. And despite the misgivings of her staff, they send in this other witch that they refer to as him. But when he shows up, and it's a very interesting visual from Hayden Sherman, he looks just like this sort of skeleton being with just these flames dancing over his body. And it's interesting where the flames are, you sort of see his whole body or see his clothing or whatever. And then where the flames aren't, where the flames are behind him, you see a skeleton. So I have no idea who this character is. He's wearing a hat. By the way he speaks, I was thinking, isn't this going to be the absolute John Constantine? But the way he speaks doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So no idea who it might be. But he definitely goes in and starts using his abilities right at the end on Wonder Woman, and says uses backward speech just like Zatanna would, and basically says burn, and Diana's magical arm starts to burn. So a lot of action, tons of action in this issue. Gorgeous art from Hayden Sherman. Zatanna is not a villain, but she at the one thing that I don't want to say it's a disappointment because I love the issue, but I'm so intrigued by this new version of Zatanna, and even more so now. I didn't want her to be a villain. Turns out she's not a villain. I wish we would have gotten a little bit more of her and find out, where she teleported and escaped to or what have you. But I imagine that, that's going to be coming up. I shouldn't want it to happen too fast because I'm the first one that complains that DC is introducing too many characters in the Absolute Universe too quickly. overall. Jason Aaron is the one that's really taken his time, but it feels like in Absolute Batman, especially, like the characters are just coming so fast, and I worry they're going to run out of stuff if they don't pace themselves a little quicker. And Kelly's Wonder Woman has been somewhere in the middle, but yeah, I shouldn't be like, oh no, give us all the info about Zatanna. Like I do also want to enjoy the journey, but she just seems like such an intriguing character. I like her design and everything, and I was really happy to find out that she's not wasn't voluntarily helping Veronica Cale. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this was in my top 3. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah, in my top 3. So I know it's in your top 5 as well, Rocky. So what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's absolutely in my top 3. Just Kelly Thompson continues to impress the hell out of me. What a fantastic sequence, a series of action sequences. I love. It was a complete twist what Zatanna did. Her being essentially controlled by a parasite that she swallowed. It ended up being, looks like what we know to be Starro. And it's very interesting as well. That's what you call an Easter egg. If somebody knows nothing about the mainstream DC universe, you're not going to look at that parasite and think Starro, because you're not going to know what that is. But for those of us who know the look, we know that we got something to look forward to. Starro. So Starro's in this universe. Even at the end, this new sort of witch. Who could that be? It could be, who knows? Maybe it could be John Constantine. Maybe it's the demon. Could it be Jason Blood with the new form of the demon? I don't know. Or could it be something related to Ares or something? Who knows? There's so many options, and we'd love to hear people in the comments if they have any theories as to who that is. Let us know. I just love the speculation. Being a longtime reader, and this is why this is the golden age of the Absolute Universe. You're right, Jace, when you say that they're giving us the Absolute versions of these characters, and some of them are coming fast, sometimes slower, depending on who the writer is and the various titles. But right now, I'm just enjoying the revelations and the guesses, and it's just so much fun to be an absolute DC fan right now, and this issue is because of that. Hayden Sherman's art's fantastic. It's his layouts and designs of the various pages that make things even more exciting. I love how Wonder Woman, this is actually the most exciting Wonder Woman Giganta battle I've ever seen, if for no other reason that I like the magical based Wonder Woman who basically uses her magic to enlarge herself and to meet Giganta at her own level. And I really like it. I gotta say, I have a hard time imagining, Kelly Thompson, you're doing such a fantastic job. I have a hard time imagining that this is the same writer that gave us Birds of Prey, because honestly, I think that the level of the choreography, the writing is just, it's on a different level. And I don't know what it is, but she's inspired. I think she's channeling her inner Athena, because the wisdom upon which she's crafting these Wonder Woman issues. I mean, I actively, if you can believe this, I actively was thinking, well, okay, am I thinking this issue is better than it is? Am I too biased, etc.? Because I've been loving this more and more and more. And no, it's in my top 3, easily in my top 3. And every single time, every issue that comes out, this is arguably better than Absolute Batman in my mind, which blows me away. And wow, anyways, just great time. And I feel more like a Wonder Woman fan. I've always been a Wonder Woman fan because I'm used to the mainstream. I've always been a Wonder Woman fan who never really liked Wonder Woman. You know that. You chuckle at it. But this is making me genuinely love Wonder Woman. It's just in the Absolute universe.
Yeah, I mean, she's such a badass. No doubt in my mind it's better than Absolute Batman. Some fantastic covers as well. I ordered the Derek Chew variant myself. Yeah. But being that this is the first cover appearance for Absolute Giganta on the main cover, I'm going to probably pick up that one as well. And then Rocky's got
Mattia
D. Eloise cover.
That's my favorite. That's the one I got on order. Yeah.
Yeah, she's got her fists up ready to do battle. There's also a number of retailer variants on this that are fantastic. There's one by Carla Cohen for 616 Comics. There's one by Tyler Kirkham that you can get directly from his website. And then from Unknown Comics, David Nakayama, who we mentioned earlier on that Harley Quinn variant, he's got a cover that has Zatanna on it that is gorgeous. And I'm considering I don't know how much it is, but I'm considering it. But he's got a foil version, a regular one that has the trade dress, and then a virgin one. So a virgin foil, and then a regular one. They're probably $30. I probably won't end up getting it because it's not like it's her first cover appearance. You know, she was on the cover of the previous issue, and on the variant,
Yeah.
one of the variants.
I just want to make a comment that one of the things I really appreciate what DC is doing, for the most part, I love that all their variants, most of them, in most of the time, all their variants for the absolute titles are all open order. They have, most the odd one they'll be a 1 in 25, but for the most part, they've all been open order variants, and I love that because I do not buy ratio variants at all. I just don't. But I got to tell you, I bought more covers since they're open order. I bought more variant covers, and I'm the guy who's often bitching. You know, I rant against variant covers, but I'm the first to admit if they're open order, I'm getting 3 or 4, and I've been doing that with these absolute titles. But why go 1 in 25? I understand the logic behind it. You want to me, don't ever worry about giving incentive to retailers. I'm sorry, make the customer happy. The retailers, that's how you make retailers happy, by making the customers happy. But that's my little side rant.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of, I'll take a little tangent here. You mentioned that for anybody that's really in the know with you led up the show talking about it. Anybody that's really in the know in the kind of the comics collecting community knows that last week White Sky, a series from Image, blew up. $40, if not more, for issue 1. It was very underordered. Nobody really, kind of knew about it or necessarily wanted it ahead of time. The writer comes to the world of video games. He has a huge following there. They're not people that would, necessarily pre-order. So retailers had no idea. It led to a shortage of the book, and it started going for, way over cover price immediately. And then the week before was a similar thing with Dork, where a guy that had done a bunch of dungeon crawler Dave or Carl, dungeon crawler Carl or something. I don't know, some other medium that brought people in. Plus he'd done a bunch of work with Scotty Young, and that was the Dork series. So
and then there was the cocaine hippopotamus issues, or something. The massacre,
Florida cocaine hippopotamus massacre, which from Mad Cave, which also blew up because very underordered, because Mad Cave doesn't do big numbers on books. But people just showing up and seeing the cool name and going, "Oh, I want that book," and then created this demand, and people can't fight it. So I say all that to say there was a debate going on about what retailers should do. When a book is, before you even open your doors on Wednesday morning, the book is already going for over cover price. Should they have to sell it for cover price? Should they not? Whatever. And there was this debate going on. And I heard one person, they had the best idea of anything that I had heard anybody. You want to talk about making customers happy. And their proposal was they should be putting those books in the pull boxes of their best customers and give them give their best customers the chance to buy it first if they want it. These are the people that come in, every month, if not more often, and pick up their books. They're not sticking the retailer with their books for months and months and months at a time, tying up their cash flow and that sort of thing. And I was like, what, that is the best. That's the way you reward your customers for being loyal and for, picking up their pull boxes every week and that sort of thing. I thought that was a fantastic idea. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention it because you mentioned making customers happy. And I was like, yeah, that is the way you do it. And if they didn't want it, then you can go and put it on, as a retailer, you can go and put it on eBay or whatever. So, anyway, let's move on. Up next, we have Absolute Martian Manhunter #9 from writer Deniz Camp. Javier Rodriguez on art, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhau. Obviously, Javier doing his own colors, as he has throughout the series. A little bit of a down issue for me in terms of Absolute Martian Manhunter. Came in at number 10. Actually, I'm going to put it at 11. I'm going to make a slight adjustment. So number 11 for me. And this was just an issue where it felt a little bit, like setup. Really a bridge between what has happened in the last couple issues and what I'm perceiving to be sort of the climax, which I imagine is going to take place over issues 10 and 11. And then issue 12 will be sort of a wrap-up issue. I don't know anything. I haven't read ahead on this title. But that's just kind of how I'm envisioning it based on the way the pacing of the story has gone on so far. So I feel like the first 6 issues of Absolute Martian Manhunter kind of stood on their own a little bit better than the last half has. And we do also know that issue 12 is the final issue. This creative team had the opportunity to continue. They chose not to because they're going to go work on another project. My speculation is that's going to be Doom Patrol. We have no official announcement yet. But I do think, especially this last half of the 12 issues, so issues 7 through 12, are going to read much better in a trade. I think the first issue, 6 issues, the first arc will read better in a trade as well. And honestly, probably reading the whole thing as a 12-issue story will probably be the best thing to do. But I do think the first 6 issues, especially individually, stand a little bit better on their own than the second half do. Because this is not a title. Like, no, I can't, Rocky was mentioning earlier the Harley Quinn issue where, hey, somebody could just pick that up and read it and enjoy it. If you just gave this to somebody and they hadn't read any Absolute Martian Manhunter or had read a comic before, they are going to be like, what? Why do people read comics? I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah.
This is a dense book. I think that's going to read much better in collected edition. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, I echo your sentiment. I will say this, that I still say that the color work here, I still have, I read this 4 times. I really want to understand it. I think I got the gist of it. I think what's going on is that the 2 members of the agency are I think there's some sort of psycho team I think they're a team that the agency was maybe created by the White Martians, because the 2 members of the agency captured the psychic essence of the Martian Manhunter, because he doesn't exist in a physical form. And then they're psychically vivisecting him in this issue, and you see all these colors. Meanwhile, this star, the Despair the Zero, who's sort of like who's sort of like the negative energy, the negative, always thinking negative thoughts. He's sort of infected John Jones's mind, and he's having a negative effect on John Jones and affecting John Jones's perception. And John Jones is going about his life and going into, and then he meets with his wife for marriage counseling, and that doesn't work out too well. And then he discovers at the end that his son is actually possessed by, I think, the Despair, or rather the White Martian. And I think that's what's going on. Now, having said that, we have these color barrages on the various pages, and then we get pages where there's white smoke coming out of the nostrils of some people, does that mean the White Martian influence direct? But then we get the Despair the Zero influences, which is like a dark purple. I think that the colors are extremely significant, or supposed to be, and it makes for a very beautifully colorful page artistically. But it does, I am challenged. I feel very challenged. There's literally, if you've ever played that game Operation, there's actually, imagine instead of the clown that you're operating on a version of Martian Manhunter, and it's one of the members of the agency is almost like she's playing Operation, but she's psychically operating and vivisecting Martian Manhunter. But he must be doing it psychologically, because physically he doesn't exist. So on the very first page, it shows them operating on him, but he can't actually exist physically. So I don't know why, but they're rendering it as if they're operating on him. And again, it's very sort of off-putting. I'm well aware that there's a strong metaphorical symbolic element to this story. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that I might not be getting it, and some of this might be lost on me, and there's maybe a different way I could be looking at this, because I actually discover and come to different conclusions every time I would review it. But I do think that this is, I'm kind of glad this is 12 issues, because this kind of feels like a chore and to read. And while I get the main story, I actually believe, and this is, I openly wonder if I wouldn't get more out of this story if they eliminated all the dialogue of the Despero character and all the dialogue of the White Martian. I wonder if this story would read better if I never heard the thoughts of the people, and we could just go on what was being physically stated and by the characters, because I'm not sure at times I question myself whether or not it really serves the story to have all these colors there. I get the purpose of the colors, but why do we really need to see all the emotions of every single character in the scene? I don't know how it necessarily serves the flow of the narrative. I find that it interrupts some of the scenes, I think. But, again, maybe I'm wrong. But in any event, the fact that I really wanted to strive to understand this, and so I read it, and I do have a better appreciation of it. But I do find that it's a lot of work, and I'm kind of glad that this isn't going to go 12 issues, because I say again, I've said this from issue 1. I'm imagining, to me, if you were to have the absolute Martian Manhunter in any big event in the fourth quarter of this year, because we're supposed to be getting one, having absolute Martian Manhunter there, I don't know if I want him in any of the scenes, because all we're going to be getting is a bunch of color work on all the characters. It just seems like I want. It just seems like it's a character that is maybe a little bit too eclectic even for the absolute universe. But I know there's a lot of people out there that would disagree with me on that. I will say that arguably, probably for the most creative covers and variant covers, I think that Martian Manhunter has some of the best variant covers I've ever seen in any of the absolute titles. Very, very creatively done. But again, I got mixed feelings about the overall narrative. Admittedly, though, I mean, maybe that could change, because I've really gone up and down in reviewing the issues individually, issue to issue. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Dan Hip there in the center. Well, you didn't tell us what your ranking of it was.
I actually put this, honestly, I struggled with my ranking, but I put it near the bottom. I put it near a number 11, because at the end of the day, I had to, even though I read this 4 times, I couldn't do it. It felt like work. And I actually read it because I was going to do a review on it. And I don't know if what I just articulated serves anyone listening, but do you know what I mean? But I wanted to at least feel that I had some grasp of the material.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it is, it's a little bit more avant-garde, a little more cutting edge, a little more esoteric or what have you. But to your point, yeah, I mean, we get some clues about John Jones. We find out that perhaps he was caught up in, maybe he's corrupt. Maybe he was falsely accused. Like, we don't get the details on that. But that's what caused him to be transferred out of Washington, D.C. And seems like he lost some of the upward trajectory of his career and what have you. So, yeah, there's sort of like, okay, well, maybe when those guys are done, another creative team comes on to absolute Martian Manhunter at some point. And it gives us the same concept, but in a much more straightforward kind of way.
Yeah.
Without that, which it's just a different style of telling the story. But what might that look like? You wonder, right? Because, okay, here's a guy where it would feel more like a procedural story. Here's a guy who is, an FBI agent. He's on the job. He's trying to do his job. Things are sort of falling apart at home. And he's got this, it seems like he's having a mental breakdown because he's seeing things and hearing voices. Like, when I say that, you could think of that as like some sort of a procedural type show. Like a CSI or a Law and Order, or if anybody's not familiar with what a procedural is. It doesn't have to be all out there and weird and psychedelic like this is. Now, it's fine that it is, because it engenders something different emotions and what have you. But that does not going to work for everybody. So, I wonder if you take the same character, put it in the hands of a different creative team, and tell a similar story, how might people react to it? So, yeah, it's interesting because this is selling very well, I will mention. So, anyway, let's move on. Up next, another book that's not in my top 5, but I did enjoy. It's The Flash, issue 30, final part of Impulse Control. It's part 5, written by Mark Waid and Christopher Cantwell. Art by Vasco Gregev, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Buddy Bedoin. Really great callback to the sacrifice that Wally West made during Crisis on Infinite Earths, and giving context to that, and reminding us that, for the most part, the Flash family is a family, as it were. So I did really enjoy this. There's also one of the variant covers. It's by Daniel Bayliss, that has the Darkseid Legion kind of reaching for Impulse and Wally West Flash as they're running toward the reader. It's on It's on there in the center of the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. That cover is absolutely gorgeous. So, new era of Flash coming after this final DC KO tie-in issue with Ryan North writing it. And haven't been the biggest fan of Ryan North's Fantastic Four run. I actually dropped it. So, very curious to see what his run is going to be like. So, anyway, I don't think this is in your top 5 either, Rocky. So, do you have anything to mention?
Yeah, I actually, I thought this was, I was disappointed in this. I thought that this was very forced. I actually think that while this doesn't taint the original Crisis, it almost does in my mind because I revere the original Crisis. Impulse, what the hell is Impulse doing? Barry Allen, why is he going back to stop Barry Allen from dying in the original Crisis? Barry Allen's still alive, and he knows that. What's he doing? This is so forced, and I didn't feel the emotion that I was supposed to feel, I think. And it's because I was too busy being a little bit upset with this forced narrative. What the hell is Impulse doing? This is beyond impulsive. This is just plain stupid. He served no purpose whatsoever. And he was like, you're going to go back and stop Barry Allen from what? Doing the Crisis? What does that have to do with the main narrative? And Darkseid, of course, even says, Darkseid, it was even part of his plan. If Impulse is that stupid to go and disrupt the time flow, then let him. He's just playing it in my hands. And so, Wally West had to stop him from doing so. And then there's, and then when Impulse says goodbye to Barry Allen before he dies in the Crisis, that isn't really a goodbye because he's still alive in the present. So I just thought it was so forced. Rocky Davis and Ultivac showing up. We remember Rocky Davis as a challenger of the unknown. Him and Ultivac disappeared at the end of the Challengers of the Unknown series, that miniseries that all of us have forgotten about, that was almost superfluous and unnecessary, really, when you think about it. Them showing up here, largely unnecessary. I just thought this whole thing, it just sort of like, this was a sort of a giant miss for me. But the one aspect of the storyline that was interesting is the idea of Omega Speed, that Darkseid wants to replace the Speed Force. The Speed Force is the nervous system of the DC universe. If you think of the universe like a human body, the Speed Force is the nervous system. He wants to replace the nervous system with the Omega Speed. That's kind of cool. He could have focused more on that because that was more interesting than this. I think this was a cheap attempt at a character moment and a rare miss by Mark Waid, in my opinion. I think he was just sort of grasping at straws here. So for that reason, I put this near the bottom of my list this week. I just thought I put this down at number 11 for me.
Yeah, fair. I mean, we know Impulse is not the smartest, so not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He's a few ants short of picnic, however you want to put it. But I get what you're saying. Like, it's one thing to depict him as maybe not the brightest. It's another thing to use him as basically as a plot device, which is kind of what he was here. And and it's so funny too, right? Because he makes the mistake of, hey, we'll just travel back in time and stop Darkseid, and that doesn't work. So then he's like, oh, we'll just travel back in time and stop Flash, my Uncle Barry from killing himself. Like, dude, you just traveled back in time, and Wally chased after you to stop you because it wasn't going to work, and you realize it was a mistake, and then you literally make the same mistake. I mean,
honestly, if that happened in Gotham City, I'd put Impulse in Arkham Asylum. I mean, that's just insanity. Like, that was just Arkham level stupidity on my part. I'm exaggerating, but not by much.
yeah, 100%. That being said, I still love Mark Waid. I still love Christopher Cantwell.
Yeah,
no doubt. All right, up next we have new history of the DC universe, the Dakota incident. So 3 acts here. First one was written by Joseph P. Illidge, second by Stephanie Williams, third by Morgan Hampton. Art in the first act is by Valentin D. Landro with colors by Marisa Louise. Second act is Carlo Pagulian, Steven Segovia with Jason Paz on inks and John Kalis on colors. And then the third act is Fico Ossio handling the art with Ulysses Ariol on colors. The entire thing is lettered by AndWorld Design. Now, Mark Waid did consult on this. I am not sure why the Milestone universe and the powers that be, what have you, at Milestone or maybe at DC, decided not to include any of the Milestone universe in the main history of the DCU. Because clearly, based on the events that we see happen here, the Milestone universe is part of the main DC universe. But apparently that was not always the case necessarily is what we're seeing here, because the story starts off and we're seeing what is supposed to be the future of the Milestone universe. It says Dakota City several years from now, and we see an event take place where basically the kid that Static Shock mentors, Beacon, he basically disappears. He's sucked into the time stream and he disappears. And when he reappears, he's in the Milestone universe that's part of the regular DCU, but he's not. It's not a Milestone universe that he recognizes. Things have played out much differently. So it's almost like DC has decided, okay, let's take the new iteration of the Milestone universe that we came up with, more recently, and we'll amalgamate it together with the old version of the Milestone universe. But the old version of the Milestone universe will slightly tweak that to make it darker, but also have it integrated with the DC universe. Meanwhile, you have Beacon, again, who is he's Rocket's son, from Rocket from Icon and Rocket, Augustus or Armistead Augustus Irvin is his name. But anyway, he's sort of in a way playing the role of Pariah or Wave Rider. He's sort of that POV character, or Barry Allen in Flashpoint, right, where he's the one that remembers the way things are supposed to be. And so I found this to be a story that has positioned the Milestone universe to be in a really interesting place. They can go and restore it back to what it was at the beginning of this story, where everything in Milestone is a little brighter and wonderful, and it feels separate from the DCU. Or they could lean into that darker aspect, and Lex Luthor, he's on the cover. A lot of that, of what happens to make it darker, is due to agreements they make during Lex Luthor's presidency. When I say they, the heroes of the Milestone universe, in order to protect Dakota City. So they could lean into that. They could have an amalgamation of both. Really, the way this story goes and the way it sets up at the end and how it's kind of open-ended really gives them the potential to do anything they want with the Milestone universe. But again, I just wonder about the timing of it coming out as DCKO is ending, and why wasn't it a part of the new history of the DC universe previously that Mark Waid did? Maybe it wasn't quite ready.
It did have a couple. I thought it had a couple pages, but it did expand on it. It did have some pages, so it was.
But it wasn't this. But it wasn't this history.
No, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So that's where I'm just like, what the heck, whatever. So anyway, I'm trying to get Morgan Hampton on. I've been wanting to have Morgan on for a while to talk about Green Lantern Corps. So I thought it'd be a good idea. He was a part of this or whatever. He can come on and maybe I'm sure he can't, give the store away or whatever and tell us everything, but he can give some hints about, what's to come and maybe provide some context for this. So based on the potential that I think this has, and based on the fact that I actually have an affinity for the Milestone universe, I think the original Milestone universe is vastly underrated. Vastly underrated. It was so good and it felt so different and urban at the time. I'm generalizing, and I don't want to come across as stereotypical, because it did have somewhat of a house style in terms of the art style, but those books had wildly different tones, despite the fact that the art was similar. But when you read Blood Syndicate, that felt very different from Zombie, which felt very different from Hardware, which felt very different from Static. So, and I think just not enough people really enjoyed them, because they were the black books, right? That's what they were called, back then. Those are for black people. And I remember falling in love with them. I think the crossover event that they had, I think it was called Long Hot Summer. They crossed over with Superman, and that's what pulled me in. And then I went back and bought a bunch of back issues and dove in. And yeah, I just feel like not enough people back then gave them a fair shake. But anyway, I really, like I said, enjoyed this, especially for the potential that it offers. I'm very curious to see where the Milestone universe goes from here. And based on that, it did make my top 5. It came in at number 5 for me. So anyway, any thoughts to add, Rocky? I know it wasn't in top 5.
Yeah, no, well, it came in at number 7 for me. And the way I understood this is that this was we've reviewed pretty much every milestone title related title that's come out in the last 5 years. We and I have pretty much reviewed it, and we've been generally enjoying it. It's and if there was one criticism, it's because the various writers and creators involved, they have to truncate the story so much. And we never got we never really got consistent month to month stories. It often it was sort of it felt a little choppy and not. It wasn't really as coherent as we'd like, but that was, I think, because it never had wasn't really allocated enough consistent issues. And in any event, how I interpret this is they've essentially, the bulk of this new history of the DC universe, the Dakota incident, they shoehorned this and they shoehorned it in right in the middle of the 90s. Milestone came out in 96. Right around the time when Lex Luthor was president of the United States in the mainstream DC universe, Milestone, while technically part of the DCU, was really kind of sort of outside of it, really, even though they had the DC Milestone crossover at the end of the 90s. The reality is that now they shoehorned this in, and they shoehorned it in kind of a little bit of a choppy way. Basically, the Dakota City, there was with the murder of this Alvin Alday character, basically the Suicide Squad are sent in by Amanda Waller. The Suicide Squad, led by Ben Turner, attacks all the Milestone characters, etc. The Justice League gets involved. Huge sort of national incident that creates an uproar in the United States. And as a result of that, President Luthor meets with Icon, and basically they agree that all the heroes of Dakota City are going to go into hiding. For some reason, I mean, I'm sorry, but I just see the stuff that isn't said out loud in this issue. This is blatant, I think, racism. The black characters, Dakota City's got black characters, so they got to stay in hiding. The rest of the DC universe, the heroes can do whatever they want. Gotham City, apparently, you can throw on a mask and be a hero or a villain all you want in Gotham City. You're in Dakota City, you got to stay in hiding or something. I thought this was an all for what? I think it's to set up that now, over the last 20 years, the heroes of the Milestone universe, are they going to come out now? Are they going to come out of hiding and sort of violate this de facto agreement with the U.S. government to stay in hiding? Static's going to come out. Icon's going to become more prevalent. Rocket, etc. And the next legacy of Milestone heroes are going to come out and manifest. The bang babies flowing from the Dakota incident. They're not going to stay hidden anymore like they were maybe forced to go underground because of by President Luthor back in the late 90s, but now they're going to come out more, and I think maybe that's a way to pull them into the mainstream DC universe, and maybe that's why they did this. And while that continuity might be a little bit wonky, because where was Milestone during the Absolute Power incident and the other big events, et cetera, in any event, I'm prepared to accept it, if for no other reason that we're going to see these Milestone characters more in the mainstream DC universe. That's what we need. I think one of the things holding the Milestone universe back is that because it's almost exclusively African-American characters, I think they would benefit more by intermingling more with the mainstream characters, because I think they would get more limelight. I think they would benefit more from we have diversity in the DCU. Let's just see more of the Milestone characters more often, period, intermingling with the other heroes of the DC universe. And I hope that's what maybe DC is intending to do with this particular approach, because part of me feels this sort of came out of left field, but this, I think, is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, up next we have Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, written by Brian Buccellato. Or I should say Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2, issue number 7. The finale, written by Brian Buccellato, Christian Duce on art, Luis Guerrero on colors. This has been fun throughout. It continues to be fun. It's awesome to see these giant monsters fighting each other, fighting the Justice League. Don't get too much of the villains in this. It's that part of the storyline has almost been completed in a lot of ways, although there's plenty to rejoice in terms of Amanda Waller being killed in the first issue of this series. I will forever have a fondness in my heart because of that. That being said, This doesn't feel like the final chapter of this at all. At all. We get sort of the resolution of what was going on with Waller and I can't remember the other character's name. The one that was a villain from the Godzilla movies.
Yeah, I forget.
I'm looking it up right now if it's even in here because they mention him here, but no, he's
The head of
not.
Monarch or whatever.
Yeah, the head of the consortium. That's basically the one that killed Amanda Waller. Leland Shaw. Leland Shaw is his name. He's mentioned here as, hey, we need to defeat Leland Shaw, but he doesn't even show up. So yes, the bad villains or the bad monsters are defeated through a team up with the Justice League, teaming up with Godzilla, and teaming up with Kong, and even Mothra makes an appearance here. So yeah, the bad kaiju are put down, but again, this doesn't feel like the end of the story. And it even ends with the end question mark. So I feel like there's going to be another issue here because there's so much that's kind of left open-ended. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But the art, fantastic. The story is so fun, just so fun. And yeah, and it has been throughout. So anything to add, Rocky?
Not really. It is a lot of fun. It just has a lot of competition. It was not on my pull list, although I've been enjoying reading it. It's just, I guess, I don't know what it is. I feel a little bit Godzilla'd out by this point, and I'm not even looking like the Monarch Legacy of Monsters is season 2 is out, and I'm not really a big fan of that on the I don't know if it's on Amazon or what it is, but I feel like I need a Godzilla break, and maybe there's a reason why he just comes out once in a while in the movies. But in any event, no disrespect to Buccellato, because he does know how to make this as fun as he possibly can. But very clearly, it looks like we're probably going to be getting a Justice League Godzilla v Kong 3, particularly the way this ended. It felt like it ended abruptly, quite frankly, frankly, it shouldn't feel that way when you got 7 issues. So that's why I'm thinking it must clearly lead to something else.
The first volume didn't feel like that.
Yeah, it didn't. No.
First volume felt like it. Yeah, it was a substantial ending. So, anyway, I forgot to mention for the New History of the DC Universe, the Dakota Incident, a couple of fantastic covers. There's one by Carlo Pagulian that's really awesome, and there's another by Joshua Swaby, that's got a foil version of Icon showing off her assets. I'll put it that way. All right. Up next, we have Superman number 35 from writer Joshua Williamson, art by Eddie Barrows, with inks by Iber Ferreira and Julio Ferrara. Alejandro Sanchez on colors, Ariana Mayer on letters. Man, if you are a fan of Superboy Prime, you are going to love this issue. He's going all out for sure. There are some revelations here from Doomsday, which lead directly into DC KO issue number 5. Also, a little bit of a hint at redemption for the Darkseid Legion, which I find to be really interesting. And so there's just so much in this issue. This is a perfect example from Joshua Williamson of how you write a comic, stuff it to the gills with story, and make people feel like they're getting a lot of value for their money. Now, it's not a spoiler to say that at the end of DCKO, Superman goes missing. And so, we've already gotten solicitations for the Superman books that are coming out after that. And there's a big kind of month-long event that's going on across the Superman titles in March called Reign of the Superboys. So this issue does also set up that in terms of how it's going to affect Superboy Prime, who gets introduced to Jonathan and Martha Kent by Lois Lane here. We also get hints that her powers are not going to last. She's going to lose them once again. So, both good and bad there. I have some mixed feelings about what's revealed about Doomsday here. We'll talk more about it when we talk about DCKO5 because it has to do more with that story than this one, and I don't want to spoil anything. But I enjoyed this. When you add in the Eddie Barrows art, like, man, I can't remember the last time I've enjoyed Superman as a title as much as I've enjoyed the Joshua Williamson run. Like, we probably have to go back to like the Jeff Johns run on Action, Superman and the Legion of Superheroes story arc was the last time. Coincidentally, this has Legion in it as well, but obviously the evil version. I am a huge Legion of Superheroes fan, so maybe that has to do with it. But I'm almost I almost like this in spite of the fact that it's a DC KO tie-in, because all of the things that I love about it the most don't really have anything to do with DC KO, other than the fact that it's the fact this KO tournament is happening is why Superboy Prime is kind of the stand-in Superman here, fighting alongside Lois, the Superman robot, trying to provide information that Superman himself might need to help win the DC KO tournament. So, the situation and the events that unfold in this book do happen because of KO, but it's not as directly related as you might think. But that being said, this is one of the more important tie-in issues to read because this issue really leads into the events of DCKO 5, particularly the information about Doomsday and what's revealed and what have you. So if you don't want to be sort of lost when you pick up DCKO 5, I do recommend picking this up. But oh my God, what a fantastic issue. Again, I know it's partly because of my love of Superboy Prime, why I've been enjoying the Superman title so much, but it's so clear to me that Joshua Williamson loves Superboy Prime as well. I think that he and I see Superboy Prime a little bit different. I'm a little more willing to have Superboy Prime, I guess, kind of revert a little bit more back to his pre-Infinite Crisis version. I know he can never go back to being who he was pre-Infinite Crisis, where he had that innocence and that belief and that sort of naivete. He's just done and been through too much and been a villain and done despicable things. But he doesn't necessarily have to be who I think Josh has him over here and I have him over here. So we're not that far apart, but a little bit. I wouldn't mind if he was a little more like a little more closer to what he used to be. But Josh still has him as like the angry guy. But I got shades of the horrible Man of Steel movie in this. But I mean, if Superboy Prime can, stop from snapping somebody's neck, I think that Henry Cavill could have stopped as well. So anyway, this didn't make your top 5, Rocky. I was a little bit surprised.
No, it didn't. It came in at number 8, actually. I just because it did. I thought it was okay. I actually think but you're right. It's funny. We could talk a lot more, and you could have said a lot more about this issue, because we do normally talk spoilers, but there's so much of the central gist of this issue is the heart and soul of DCKO number 5 that I'm also going to avoid talking about some of the plot points here, but I will talk about one from a different angle, and that is there's a wonderful scene where Saturn Girl tries to read the mind of Lois, of Superwoman, and she's reading the mind of Superwoman, and she sees all the memories that Lois has with Superman and her life as Superman. And I love the moment. It's such a powerful moment where it actually, for the first time, Saturn Girl, for the first time in years, she can't hear Darkseid's voice in her head. And I love the symbolism of that the anti-life power of Darkseid has totally infused itself in the Dark Legion's minds, even Saturn Girl's powerful mind. But all it took was for her to read the mind of someone who was close to Superman, i.e. Lois Lane, Superwoman, and it was that little bit, that Superman virus, it was enough to override, if but for a moment, to bring some sort of the her mind wasn't overwhelmed with Darkseid anymore. Suddenly Darkseid's voice was gone, and she could for the first time feel hope. And she even talks about that here, Satin Girl. And it's wonderful. And like you said, it's the shades of what's going to come, because we know that Joshua Williamson is ultimately going to be writing a new Legion of Superheroes, and I'm so looking forward to it. So like you said, little tidbits of that in this issue. It's just so powerful, wonderfully done. And I love the fact that moment where I think it was a very powerful moment too, where Superboy Prime, like you said, decides not to kill. He could have killed Garth, and my God, it would have been an easy kill. I mean, this is a guy that we used to make jokes about him back in the days of Infinite Crisis. He was flipping rims off left, right, and center, for God's sakes. You could drink, you get drunk every time Superboy Prime rips a limb off. Have a shot of tequila, you're gonna be passed out in an hour. I mean, but now he spares Garth's life, and he doesn't so much say it, but he can see the emotion on set. He can see that Saturn Girl loves. He can see it, and we readers can see it. And the art's so fantastic. The art that's conveying this emotion, I think it's, whether it's Eddie Barrows' art, or I know there's a number of artists on here, but just stellar job. So much conveyed in this issue. That's all I'll say, other than the fact that, yes, this is a DC KO tie-in that is it is a must. I think it's a must because it's additive. This issue in particular will add to the gravitas and the themes that will be read in DC KO number 5. So it's a high recommend. It just didn't make my top 5, but for different reasons. But this is a very good comic to pick up if you like DC KO.
Yeah, DC KO 5 coming out next week, I believe. So be ready for that, everybody. I'm more so than any other next level title. I mean, I love me some Firestorm, but I'm looking forward to that Legion of Superheroes. But, it is a hard property to get right. And I feel like the last few iterations haven't gone so well, particularly the Bendis version. It wasn't well received by longtime Legion fans, although Bendis fans seem to enjoy it. But I have a little bit of a theory about that, and I think it's just because when you talk about Legion of Superheroes, more so than any other property, because it is a team and it's a big team, even people that are big fans of the Legion, it's like, okay, well, this writer's getting these 7 characters that I like, I'm connecting with their versions and their interpretation of these 7 characters, but maybe these 4. I'm not connecting with, you know what I mean? Like no writer's going to come in and give you your favorite version of every single character. It's just not possible. Like if you're a fan of, the Levitz run or the Mark Waid run or of Legion or whatever it might be, every character is just not going to be the same. And if you love those stories, they still exist. You can go back and read them, but it makes it a little more hard to get correct because we're not talking about Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman or Flash or Green Lantern or whomever, right? Where it's 1, 2, 3 characters, maybe 5 or 6 in terms of some of the families, Bat family, Flash family, stuff like that. I mean, we're talking about dozens of characters when you talk about the Legion, and the Legion is different characters to different people based on what era that you might enjoy, right? So, I mean, maybe it's Ultra Boy, maybe it's Timberwolf, maybe it's Dream Girl, maybe it's Dawnstar, maybe it's Wildfire. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And each creator comes on it, wants to kind of put their own stamp on it. That being said, Joshua Williamson is a giant fan of Legion. So is Jim Lee. So hopefully we get a great version of the Legion in next level. Last thing I'll say about Superman 35, I mentioned those Valentine variant covers before. I'm picking the Superman one up. It's Superman and Lois. It's just a little boy Superman. He's even wearing like looks like he's wearing jeans and like Chuck Connor tennis shoes, and he's carrying Lois and he's flying, and it's too much. It's too much. Anyway, up next, our Vertigo title for the week. It's The Peril of the Brutal Dark, Ezra Cain mystery, issue number 1 from writer Chris Condon. Jacob Phillips handles the art, including the colors. We have letters by Hassan Otsman El. So this was in my top 5. It's in your top 5 as Rocky. In your top 5 as well, Rocky. Give us your thoughts.
Before I do that, I want to show, for those watching, you can order a variant cover of Nice House by the Sea #7 had a variant cover that shows all the, sort of like the Beatles walking across the street. They're all walking in a sort of like a straight line. So the first issues, when Nice House by the Sea #7 and the first issues of Bleeding Hearts, End of Life, and the Perils and the Peril of the Brutal Dark and Ezra Cain Mystery #1. They're all connecting covers and they look gorgeous, and I have them up on the screen for those watching on YouTube there. I love it. I'm getting all of them. They look pretty cool, just beautifully drawn, and so that's definitely a high recommend. Again, I'm not a variant cover guy, but every now and then something catches my eye, and so I quite like I love those connecting covers. As for the story itself, as you described it to me, before I read it, and you described it that it has a little bit of an Indiana Jones feel to it, and I agree with that, and that's one of the reasons I love it. I often not often so much anymore, but I do have a full Indiana Jones regalia with the fedora and the whip, et cetera, et cetera. At Comic Cons, I'll occasionally throw on the fedora, and this is a really interesting story. I like it. Ezra Cain he's a private detective, and this involves the Anvil of Hephaestus, which is a sort of a myth, and this Anvil of Hephaestus is discovered in 1914, and eventually it in the 1940s, then where the main story takes place, it ends up being stolen from a museum, and Ezra Cain is called in to find this anvil, and this issue is pretty much set up for that. We get the initial discovery of the Anvil of Hephaestus, and then we meet Ezra Cain himself, and it's actually a lot as we. So not a lot happens, but we get a lot of really great art. A lot of it's just setting the mood. It's setting the time period. And that's where it has that, like when you were talking about, it does sort of have an Indiana Jones feel. You really get pulled into the time period, first in the 1914, and then in the 1940s, and then just with Ezra Cain himself, he's sort of like your typical detective, but he's also pretty badass. This is action packed. Right away you get a sense that trouble follows this guy. There's no such thing as an easy case for this guy. And I got to say the variant, it's the connecting cover variant for this series. There's other covers as well that are absolutely gorgeous. I wish I'd have ordered the other one. I didn't even know the other one existed. I don't know who the artist is on the one above me, but I love it. I want to get it. It sort of reminds me of the Human Target series by Tom King, that Greg Smallwood style of art. I like that old style, but that particular style. But in any event, this is mostly set up. And we have, we got murder and mayhem, and we got just a typical example of a story that sort of pulls you in right away. By the end of this issue, it's very obvious that somebody wants to stop Ezra Cain from finding the Anvil of Hephaestus. We don't know what power the Anvil of Hephaestus has. What does it bestow power on anything? We don't know. If it follows, we have no reason to believe it will necessarily follow the Indiana Jones logic of, does it actually have power, or is it just the myth? Just like with the Ark. I mean, the Ark of the Covenant ended up having powers at the end of Indiana Jones. Is it, what's going to be the central conceit of this story? Ezra Cain himself has a background in archaeology, so he does have some similarities maybe to Indiana Jones, but maybe he's going to be differentiated in other ways. He doesn't carry a whip or fedora. He doesn't seem as suave as Harrison Ford played him, but I like it. It did pull me in. I'm curious to see where this is going to go, and this is. I don't know if I'll say this is my favorite of the Vertigo series. I liked Bleeding Heart. That was I liked that quite a bit. And then last week we reviewed the End of Life. I think I'm inclined to like End of Life just a little bit more. This is in second place for me, followed by Bleeding Heart. But all three are good. All three are on my pull list. So I got to tell you, that's pretty impressive. So I'm happy with where DC Vertigo, how it's starting off firing on all cylinders here. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a tough call. End of Life or Peril of the Brutal Dark. I think I give the edge to Peril of the Brutal Dark because I think it has longer legs. I think the character of Ezra Cain I would read for a longer run than I would have. What was the guy's name? Johnny something or other
Yeah,
in
yeah, I
End of
can.
Life.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I just think I would get a little bit tired of him um, at some point.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the Indiana Jones feel, the crime noir feel. Uh, Eddie Stallion. That's the name of the character
End of
that I
life. Yeah,
couldn't recall. End of Life. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, uh, based on that, based on the richness of the world that is so quickly established, because yes, to some extent, this issue is a little bit of setup, but yeah, again, the whole idea of archaeology and artifacts, and this is the early 1940s. The specter of World War II is looming. We know Hitler's the, the interest in occult that he had. So all of that's built in, just like it is in Indiana Jones' story. Um, Ezra Cain is such a fleshed out character. Seems to be a flawed character. Seems to be a character with a past, but he is very formidable and very capable in a lot of ways. So that's interesting. And what is the brutal dark? Is that something supernatural? Is it just the name of a group of people that have ill intentions on their minds? Like we don't know. There's so much of this that's still to be fleshed out. But telling this story and fleshing out Ezra Cain and establishing the setting and what have you is just done to such an incredible extent by Chris Conn, the writer, and Jacob Phillips, the artist, especially with Jacob handling the colors, that it feels so immersive to me, whether it's Ezra himself as a character, whether it's the cop that stops Ezra on the street to ask a favor, whether it's some of these other characters, the museum, the person at the museum who hires Ezra to locate the missing anvil of Hephaestus. Like everybody just feels instantly alive and three dimensional, and there's so much life that's breathed into these characters that I'm just immediately pulled in. I want to visit this world. I want to read stories in this world. I want to be immersed in it. Kind of similar to so when I was a kid, I think I've mentioned this before. When I first started to read, when I was in kindergarten and when I was like 4 and 5 years old, my mom wanted to encourage that, and so she used to take me to the library every week, and I would pick out one Charlie Brown book, one Hardy Boys book, and one any other just random thing. But I was always a Charlie Brown book, and it was always a Hardy Boys book. And those early Hardy Boys, especially the earlier editions, because if you're not familiar, like they actually came out, I think, in the 1920s originally, first printings, and so they're sort of this era in a lot of ways, and they've been updated and modernized, throughout time. But yeah, this idea of mysteries and solving crimes, or whatever, and in a more innocent time in a lot of ways, before there was all this technology that we have at our fingertips these days. And so that's sort of the world that I feel drawn into here. So I just think it's fantastic. And to your point with that variant cover, that really is evocative of that feel, because the main cover by Jacob Phillips is fantastic as well. Like, don't get me wrong, it definitely is a more action oriented shot, but the variant, it's by Tula Lotay. It really leans into that idea of a more romantic period of time, crime noir, and what have you. So, yeah, I ordered Jacob's cover. Think I'm picking up this Tula Lotay cover as well. But then there's another one. There's a third cover that I think I'm picking up as well. That's by Jacob's father, Sean Phillips. That has like a Roman centurion helmet with like these red glowing eyes, and Ezra looks like he's trying to like run away from it. So I don't know what that hints at. If that Roman centurion helmet, yeah, there it is. I don't know if maybe this is what the brutal dark looked like. I had no idea.
Yeah.
But it's a striking cover, so I'll probably probably have to pick that one up as well. So yeah, definitely my top 3. Really, really enjoyed it. From the dialogue, which helps to really fill out the atmosphere of the time period of the story, to the artwork, which is immersive, as I said, to the just fleshed out characters that immediately feel real. I was really, really impressed. So Chris Condon's coming on later this week. Make sure you subscribe to the Comic Source YouTube channel so you can get that interview. We'll definitely be talking quite a bit about the Brutal Dark with Christopher. So, all right, last book we're going to talk about in detail did not make my top 5, just missed out. Issue number 6, or ranked it at number 6, rather, issue number 3. And this is another one where, I'm just a tiny bit disappointed because I enjoyed the first 2 so much, and the third issue just didn't land as well for me. It's still really, really strong. Don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed it, but just didn't quite make my top 5. So The Batman Second Night, number 2, written by Dan Jurgens, art and cover by Mike Perkins, colors by Mike Spicer, letters by Simon Boland. It did make Rocky's top 5, so I'll give him a chance to talk about it. I did still really enjoy this, seeing this, Golden Age version of Batman, Golden Age version of Superman, kind of meeting and working together for the first time. Lois Lane, a kind of a Golden Age version of her. The dialogue and the vocabulary people use very much of the time. A little bit different. I remember interviewing Dan Jurgens when we first talked about this, when the first volume came out, and him mentioning, yes, this is a Black Label book, but nothing in it really contradicts anything that happened back then, so it could be considered in continuity. I wonder if that will continue, because it seems like we're going to get more of these series, because it has been selling well and it is really, really good stuff, especially the Mike Perkins art, which is gorgeous. But this issue ends with Bruce Wayne getting engaged and saying that he has retired as Batman. So that does contradict. But this could also be a situation where in issue or volume 3, it's kind of like a James Bond thing, right? Like, if you're not familiar, at one point James Bond was engaged and got married and quit being in the Secret Service, the British Secret Service, and had retired, and then his wife got killed, and he went back into the service to get revenge and continued on and never got married again. Could it be something similar for Bruce Wayne in this iteration? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, didn't quite make my top 5, but I did really enjoy it. Man, is that art fantastic. So it made your top 5, Rocky, though, so give us your thoughts.
I just really enjoyed this because, first of all, it's like, it's like to me, it was an old Hollywood kind of feel to it. It was like if they had the special effects to pull out that in the 1940s that they have now, this is what we would have gotten. We would have gotten Gregory Peck-like style as Bruce Wayne, who maybe George Reeves as Superman, and it would have had this feel to it. And it just, I just think that Jan Jurgens has done a masterful job. Mike Perkins on the art's been absolutely fantastic. This Batman has a very unique look to him. This issue, we really get the official. Well, we technically got the first meeting last issue between Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne. Here, it's really that first confrontation, meaningful confrontation between Superman and Batman. And it's excellent. It's just what you'd expect. They're very suspicious of each other. Clark Kent is a reporter. Dan Jurgens does a really good job of emphasizing, obviously, that Clark Kent is a small town kid. His parents lost a farm to the elites, to the banks, and so he's cynical of maybe ultra rich dudes. So Clark Kent is already predisposed to not like Bruce Wayne, and he kind of doesn't like Bruce Wayne. He particularly doesn't like Bruce Wayne when he figures out that he's Batman. Batman himself is suspicious of Superman. He's this powerful guy. Is he an alien? Isn't he? So they've got they're understandably suspicious of each other. And the storyline, it's very well flushed out story-wise. Meanwhile, we got Scarecrow, who ultimately ends up confronting, Batman confronts the Scarecrow while Superman takes on the Hangman. The last issue we got, there was this big gala called, the Bruce Wayne put on a Night of 1,000 Lights or something, and now it's the premiere of Gone with the Wind. So this is 1939, just leading into World War II. Ultimately, they defeat the Scarecrow and the Hangman to the surprise of no one. There's a great scene with Lois Lane and Julie, who is Bruce Wayne's fiance, where Lois Lane and Clark Kent actually go to Wayne Manor and confront Bruce Wayne and Julie, and there's drama there. It's well written, understandable. There's sort of a reconciliation between Lois and Julie because they both talk about the men in their life. Essentially, Lois still doesn't know Clark is Superman. Julie, of course, knows Bruce's secret. But it plays out so well. It's so meaningful. And I love the ending. I love the fact that this is a Bruce Wayne where, you know what, this subverted my expectation in a good way. That, not all Bruce Waynes in every universe are morons. Some of them, yeah, you know what? He can give it up. And he does give it up before World War II. He gives it up for love. Bruce Wayne gives up being Batman for love. Now, maybe it's going to be short-lived. This is comics after all. But I like that he didn't need to learn that. He didn't need to learn that over another decade of his life. He knew enough he knew a good thing when he had it, and he settles down with Julie at the end. And there's a wonderful conversation between Superman and Batman at the end, which is really great, where Superman talks about, should he join in? Should he, could he? He even joked about, he could go to Europe to fight in the war that's likely going to start. They'd have to space he even joked about it. They'd have to space the battleship so he could jump from battleship to one battleship to the next because he can't. This Superman can't fly. And so the conversation between these two men who are both in many ways reluctant heroes. Superman is questioning his role in society, and Batman himself is only Batman because he needs to be. And that's reinforced by the fact that at the end, even though with the world on the brink of war, Bruce knows enough that, the world might be on the brink of war, but I'm done doing my battles here in Gotham, and I'm going to settle down. I'm going to choose love, and hey, who's to say he can't be Batman and also be happily married? Julie already knows his secret identity. If he's called back to be Batman, it doesn't mean Julie can't be his partner or his glorified Alfred. In any event, I thought it was extremely well done, and whether I don't care if it's in continuity or not. Just bring me back to this universe whenever you want. Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer. Damn good job.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to be in continuity because it's that good. It's kind of an updated. Yes, we're going back, and it's set in the time period when Batman first debuted, but it's a modernization of that in terms of telling stories set back then that are more sophisticated with the tools that are modern tools in terms of better art, better colors, better presentation. So I would hate for the fact that Bruce might get married to this woman to be the thing that keeps it out of continuity. Because let's face it, if you want to talk about Golden Age Batman stories and Silver Age Batman stories, they're sort of not in especially the Silver Age stuff. That's not in continuity anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be necessarily because it's nonsensical a lot of times. So. Anyway, that's the books that we're going to talk about in detail, everybody. As I mentioned, there are some other reprints and what have you. We've got a facsimile edition of Batman The Dark Knight Returns, celebrating its 40th anniversary. We've got, and then there's various covers for that. We've got a facsimile of Action Comics 419. I think the significance of that, the reason that they're reprinting it, is it's the first appearance of the Human Target. Not that I know of any Human Target new Human Target content that's coming up, but there's not really any other significance to that issue, so that's the only thing I can think of. There's also limited collector's edition C9, which is Secret Origins of Supervillains. That's also getting a reprint, and then there are some other reprints for Absolute. Maybe not. I thought there was some reprints of some Absolute books printings this week, but I guess not. So anyway, moving on to collected editions. We've got Mr. Terrific Year One getting its entire 6-issue series collected. Rocky and I both really enjoyed that series. If you're a fan of Mr. Terrific from watching the Superman film recently. I definitely would recommend that. Thought it was just excellent. We've also got Batman and Robin, Volume 2, The Gotham Cycle. This is from when Philip Kennedy Johnson took over the book, issues 20 through 24, collecting his first arc of the book. And then DC's Finest, The Demon, Birth of the Demon, Jack Kirby, Len Wein, Mike Royer, classic stuff, collecting Demon stories from between 1972 and 81, including The Demon 1 through 6. That was when Kirby first created and introduced him. Batman Family 17, some Brave and the Bold issues, some Detective Comics issues, some Wonder Woman issues. So again, really classic stuff. Batman by James Tynion, Omnibus Volume 2, so collecting the second half of James Tynion's run. It's 1,000 pages for $125. I'm not going to go through which issues it collects because obviously at 1,000 pages, it collects a lot of them. Superman Unlimited is getting its first collected edition for the first 6 issues from Dan Slott. Mostly Raphael Albuquerque art, but there are a few other artists in there as well. Green Lantern Dark, hardcover or softcover, whichever is your choice, collecting the entirety of that Elseworlds story from Tate Brombell with art by Werther Del Adera, all 7 issues. Gotham City Sirens, Unfit for Orbit. This is the weekly series that came out around Christmas last year by Leah Williams with art by Hanning. This collects all 5 issues of that. We've got Justice League, the new 52 Book 3. This is collecting the Forever Evil portion of that Justice League story. This is when Jeff Johns was doing it, Doug Mahnke on pencils, David Finch doing some of the issues as well. So it's collecting issues of Justice League 24 through 35 and the entirety of Forever Evil miniseries for the Spine series, not all the tie-ins. So 1 through 7 of Forever Evil. $40 for that, 472 pages. And then finally, The Joker, the Bronze Age Omnibus hardcover, 832 pages of Bronze Age Batman, $125. Almost all the stuff is from the 70s. There's some legendary creators on here. We've got Bob Haney as a writer. We've got Denny O'Neil as a writer. We've got Jim Aparo handling a lot of art. Also Doug Munch, Elliot S. Magan, Jerry Conway. Again, too much stuff to list, but 832 pages for $125. If you're a Joker fan, you definitely should look to pick that up. So that does it for the collected editions that are out this week. Time for the rankings, 1 through 12, for the 12 books that are out this week. Go ahead and kick us off, Rocky. What do you got?
Well, I have coming in at number 12, Justice League v. Godzilla v. Kong 2, issue 7. Coming in at number 11, Absolute Martian Manhunter, issue 9. Number 10, The Flash, issue 30. Coming in at number 9, Justice League Unlimited 16. Coming in at number 8, Superman 35. Coming in at number 7, New History of the DCU, The Dakota Incident. Number 6, Harley Quinn 59, the date issue. Again, speculator alert. I'm calling it. I think that's a future key issue alert. Her first date with Althea Klang. Issue number ranked number 5. I put Detective Comics 1106. I thought it was a great ending of Tom Taylor's run, Courage, The Courage That Kills. Coming in at number 4, Green Lantern 32. Jeremy Adams is pretty good at writing romance. And the proposal that went wrong, in any event, coming in at number 3, The Perils of the Brutal Dark, and Ezra claims mystery number 1. 3 for 3 in terms of enjoying the new Vertigo series. And coming in at number 2, The Batman Second Night, number 3. And number 1 for me, Absolute Wonder Woman, number 17. I had to do it again. It was just that good.
Yeah, I almost went there as well. But I went a different direction at the last minute. So anyway, number 12 for me, Harley Quinn, number 59. Coming in at number 11, Absolute Martian Manhunter, number 9. At number 10, I've got Justice League Unlimited, number 16. At number 9, we've got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 7. At number 8, Detective Comics, number 1106. Coming in at number 7 for me, I have Flash, number 30. At number 6, just missing out on my top 5, is The Batman Second Night, number 3. And then for my top 5, at number 5, I have New History of the DC Universe, The Dakota Incident, number 5. At number 4, Superman, number 35. At number 3, Green Lantern, number 32. At number 2, I've got Absolute Wonder Woman, number 17, which leaves The Peril of the Brutal Dark and Ezra Cain Mystery as my favorite book of the week. Again, the immersiveness, the richness of the world that Christopher Condon and Jacob Phillips created. Just like, as soon as I finished reading it, I wanted more. I didn't want the book to end. I gave that the nod. I almost went with Absolute Wonder Woman as well. Again, I love the fact that Zatanna is not a villain. But, this is a number 1. This is a new era of Vertigo. I agree with you. DC's 3 for 3. We've had 3 titles. Every one of them's been excellent. I don't really count the Nice House series because that was already awesome even before Vertigo came back.
Same.
But that's a great series as well. But yeah, of these new books, it's the 3rd week in a row we're getting a new Vertigo number 1, and every one of them is worth checking out. Like, just fantastic. So anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Don't forget, subscribe to Rocky's channel. If you're joining us audio only, Comic Source is available on all podcast platforms and apps. Just do a search for the Comic Source and subscribe, and you've got thousands of past episodes to listen to. But if you are listening to us audio only and want to see the art, see our smiling faces every week, just head over to YouTube, Comic Space Boom, ! Like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when new content comes out. And like I mentioned earlier, interviews coming up, Christopher Condon, Morgan Hampton, Christopher Cantwell, just to name a few, that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. So you're not going to want to miss out on those. Head over to the Comic Source YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you know when new episodes drop. That's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Appreciate you joining as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.